Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I'm here today with Natalie. And we have a really fun project planned for you today. Let's take a look at this quilt behind me. Isn't this great? So this quilt has a name. It's an old antique block that I found, and it's called the Carrie Nation quilt. And if you want to read some interesting history, just look that up. We're not going to get into it here, but you should just look that up for sure because she was an interesting woman. Anyway, this is a 4-patch quilt, 2 different sizes of 4 patches, and just by making those, it comes together so quick and easy. So to make this quilt, you're going to need 1 packet of 10-inch squares, and we have used American Beauty by Dani Mogstad for Riley Blake Designs. You're going to need a packet of 10-inch squares of background fabric, and we used ours, our Quilt Town fabric, which I love because it has the little Missouri star on it. I love the white on white anyway. You'll need one of those for your inner border, which is a 2-inch strip inner border. You're going to need 1/3 of a yard, and here's our big border, the outer border. It's a 6-inch border. You're going to need 1 1/4 yards. And the back, oh my gosh, you guys are going to want this back. For our back, you're going to need 4 yards. Let me show you the back up here on the quilt. Look how gorgeous this looks.
That's very pretty.
Isn't that so fun? Hashtag perfect points right there. I love it. Anyway, let me show you how to do this. So this is the block we're talking about right here, and they're 4 patches, darling little 4 patches. You're going to make 2 that are 2 1/2, and you're going to make 4 that are 1 1/2. And it just comes together so quick and easy. It's really fun. Now, the reason my quilt is this size is because I wanted to use the dark blues and the reds to make my block. And I didn't think there's a lot of lighter fabrics in here. So when I looked at this layer cake, I just think it's so beautiful, but I wanted to use this white background. Yep. You know, I had a design in my head that I wanted to use, so I knew that a lot of these lighter ones, they wouldn't work.
Disappear in the white
They
background.
would just disappear. These light blues would also disappear. So I chose to use 9 blue squares of the darker blue. You can see mine are all the same color family. And then I used 8 of the red ones right here. And so I had this stack left over. But guess what? Natalie came up with a whole project for that we're going to show you as soon as we're done here. But let me show you how I made these 4 patches. So let's start with this layer cake. And what I did was I stacked one of these white ones. And when you have a white on white fabric, it's easy to see which side is the printed on side if you lay it against something dark. So when we put it on here, you can see that these little stars pop. You might not be able to see them through the camera, but I can see them. Where on this side, they blend more. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put these 2 pieces right sides together, right here. And then we're going to cut all of our blue squares into 2 1/2-inch strips. And I have my 2 1/2-inch ruler right here. And Natalie, if you'll get settled at the machine, I'm going to send these over to you to sew. So what Natalie's going to do is she's going to sew these together 1/4 inch right down the side as I cut them off. And you should be able to get 4 of these out of a 10-inch strip. All right, so go ahead and just sew all of these, one right after the other. And I'm going to grab this one right here. Now for some of you, it will be easier for you to press your strip open and cut your 4 patches, but for me, it's easier to cut them before they're pressed. And so I like to just sew them together, get them all ready here. I'm even going to layer them in 2 sets of 2 because that will be 4 layers of fabric. Just like that. And then I'm going to stack these on top of each other just like this. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to look on my mat and make sure they're lined up on this line and on this line. And then we're going to cut 2 1/2-inch squares. Now that's one of the reasons I love this ruler is because I don't have to think about, you know, any measurement. I just know it's 2 1/2. So you're going to look to make sure this is lined up, and then we can just cut these stacked like this. And while I'm cutting the rest of them, I want you to sew these together as a 4 patch. Now, when we press these, if we press to the dark side, then when we set them together, they're going to line up really nice and they'll nest with each other. And I'm going to go ahead and Natalie, you're going to get 2 blocks out of each strip. So let me get this last one pressed. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these together like this, opposite ways. And so you just want to lay them together, nest up this middle. Natalie's going to watch where that comes together to make sure that it's nice and tight, and we're just going to sew 1/4 inch right down the side. And I have a few of these done already, so I'm going to go ahead and set these aside, but you'll want to cut all of yours into 2.5 inch squares. Alrighty, now what I'm going to do here, well, let's wait for Nat to finish and we'll press them open. All right, so we have our 2 4 patches done, and you'll need 2 for each block. So 2 is what we were shooting for, and you did so good. So once you finish your blue squares, your little 4 patches, we get to make the little tiny red 4 patches right here. We're going to do it the same way, except it's going to be a smaller cut. So we're going to take our red 10-inch square and our white 10-inch square. We're going to stack them on top of each other, and then we're going to cut our strips. Now I've already cut 1 strip off of here, but I'm going to cut another so I can show you exactly how to make this. And Natalie, if you want to sew down the side of that, okay. I would love that, because we need to make some tiny little red and white 4 patches. And remember, when things are smaller, they're not harder, they're just smaller. So when you sew a 1.5 strip to a 1.5 strip, it's going to make a block that is 2.5. And so we're going to sew these red blocks to white 2.5 inch squares, and I'm going to do those the exact same way that I did the blue 2-inch squares. I'm just going to cut big strips like this, 4 out of 1 layer cake, and then we're going to turn those. I'm going to stack them because I like to, you know, I like to cut a bunch at once. Cut a bunch at once. And then we're going to just cut these, and I'm going to trim off this little selvage right here so that I have, they're exactly 2.5, or not the selvage, but the pinked edge. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our little red and white strip that Natalie sewed, and you can see it's all sewn like this, and we're going to cut those into 1.5 inch segments. And I'm going to cut this edge off right here so that all of my little 4 patches match up very nicely. And so we're going to do this. And Natalie, I'm going to get 1 more, and then I'm going to press to the dark side. And you're going to go ahead and cut the whole strip, but because you're going to need lots of these, and you're going to use 8 red squares again. I think I said that before, but we'll repeat that, for it bears repeating. And then you're going to put these together opposite like this, and because you've pressed them to the dark side, those seams are going to lay opposite directions, and you'll be able to nest those right up nice and tight. Perfect. So go ahead and start that. And I have a few of those blocks already made, but we want to show you how it's done. All right, we're just busy cutting and sewing and cutting and sewing.
Okay, here's one of those.
All right, so now that Natalie has one of these, look how cute that is, one of these tiny little 4 patches, it's going to take 4 of these to make a block. So we've got 1, 2, 3, I have some done here, 4. And then we're going to stitch them to our 2.5 inch white squares. So we want to make sure that they're going the right direction. This is really important. Once you finish a block, make sure that you look at the block, leave it there so that you can match them up so they all go the same direction. Ours are going this way with the red at the top left, and we're going to sew a white square onto there, and we are going to sew a white square onto here. So we're going to make 4 patches in a 4 patch with another 4 patch. Pretty cool. All right, so Natalie, if you'll sew these together.
Sure.
And then this one together too. we can put our little block together. And I think I have enough of those done that, that we can make a block.
Okay.
Make sure they're on the right side.
I
There you
always
go.
remember that my white square goes in the,
Okay.
the bottom
There you
corner.
go. Yeah, we have these little mantras that we do so that we don't make the mistake.
Then I pull them out and they should go.
They should just match up because we left our thread this.
Well, I have to disconnect the thread because I
Okay.
stitch them together in a pattern, but
Yeah.
it's not the pattern we need to put them together. So then
So this way.
we put our white squares back to the center.
There we go. Perfect. You know, when you get to sew on a block that is comfortable to you, I think it just makes quilting a joy. You know, you're not stressed about it, and 4 patches are something we're very comfortable with. All right, so let me press that. And let's look now at how this goes together. So our 2 dark blue blocks are going to run the same direction. They're going to go this way. Our little red blocks are going to go the opposite way. And so one goes here and one goes here. And this makes our block. Now, when I was looking at the Carrie Nation block online, they are made several different ways. This is the way that I saw it. And this is the original way that she did it. But so many people took their little red 4 patches, and I love these what if moments, because if you lay these this way, I want you to watch what happens. If you lay them out this way, look what happens. This whole thing is going to chain. Let me finger press this one. Do you see how that's going to chain? Both sets of squares are going to chain. And so that makes a whole different quilt. And so I want you guys to think about this and have some fun when you're playing with it.
This is also different.
So then Natalie is going
I
to,
didn't do it like that, but that's another way to lay it.
it is another way to lay it. If you put it like this, you'll end up with these big squares in the center. Wow.
Different.
All right, 2 what ifs for you right there. So then you'll just sew this together and it will give you a block that looks just like this. So let's go back to the quilt and I'll show you how it fits in here. So this is the first block right here, just like this. And then the second block, we're going to turn it. Just rotate it 1 time. And then we're going to come back and forth and back and forth. And that's how the quilt comes together. And they end up circling up and rotating around each other, which I think is so cool when those secondary things happen. I have some blocks here that are made, so we're going to look at that. So see how this is coming together right here? See how the blue, if you put the blue, so see how this circles up right here? You know, when you add those other 2 blocks on, it's going to circle up. You can see it right here on the quilt, how it comes together. We've got our blue block and then the red one circles up. And for this quilt, it came out to be about 62 by 62, and we used the Star Spangled quilt pattern on it.
It's beautiful.
It's really darling. Now because
So you had
I made
some
it
leftover
small,
pieces.
I did have some leftover pieces.
And I wanted to try a different layout. So
Awesome.
let me show you what I made with Mom's leftovers. I grabbed all of her light squares and I put them together with a navy background.
So remember, I used my darks and the reds, and so Natalie took all the whites and the blues and all those beautiful.
So I did the same thing. The construction is exactly the same and the layout of the block is the same. So you can look at them side by side and see that my background is the
It's the
blue,
same.
so the backgrounds are all in the same places, and then my print squares are also in the same places.
Look how different they look, though, just from changing the colors around. That's one of my favorite things about fabric.
And then what I did is I laid them out all going the same way. So instead of, like, Mom alternates them, so they go like this, and I just put them together side by side, so they stayed, and they created this really cool chain effect that kind of opposite chains.
Oh, look how cool this is, you guys.
So the larger squares chain this way, and then the smaller squares also chain this way, but they're kind of more making little bow ties. I just thought it was really cute.
Isn't that so fun?
And this just uses let's see, I think about 8 squares.
So you can actually make
I'm not
several
sure.
of these. So this 1 layer cake is going to give you all sorts of projects. It's going to be really fun.
Right. And
Natalie, this is
truly
darling.
is just leftovers and a little bit of a different background color.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I thought it was fun.
It's really cool. And of course, the backing on this. The same,
Oh, yeah.
The same as that's on the quilt. It's
little
just
bitty
darling.
piece of leftover backing.
It's just darling. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial
and bonus project
from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. Hey everybody, every week I give you a new idea and we are almost 1 million quilters strong. So join us every Friday for a new tutorial, and if you haven't clicked or subscribed, make sure you do that today. See you on Friday.